The Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, Learning, Teaching, Assessment, abbreviated as CEFR, is a guideline used to describe achievements of learners of foreign languages across Europe and, increasingly, in other countries. It was put together by the Council of Europe as the main part of the project Language Learning for European Citizenship between 1989 and 1996. Its main aim is to provide a method of learning, teaching and assessing which applies to all languages in Europe. In November 2001, a European Union Council resolution recommended using the CEFR to set up systems of validation of language ability. The 6 reference levels are becoming widely accepted as the European standard for grading an individual's language proficiency. Development. In 1991, the Swiss federal authorities held an intergovernmental symposium in Ra-1-Quartier-Schlickon, Switzerland, on transparency and coherence in language learning in Europe, objectives, evaluation, certification. This symposium found that a common European framework for languages was needed to improve the recognition of language qualifications and help teachers cooperate, eventually leading to improved communication and cooperation among language teachers in Europe. As a result of the symposium, the Swiss National Science Foundation set up a project to develop levels of proficiency, to lead on to the creation of a European language portfolio certification in language ability which can be used across Europe. A preliminary version of the Manual for Relating Language Examinations to the Common European Framework of Reference for Languages was published in 2003. This draft version was piloted in a number of projects, which included linking a single test to the CEFR, linking suites of exams at different levels, and national studies by exam boards and research institutes. Practitioners and academics shared their experiences at a colloquium in Cambridge in 2007, and the pilot case studies and findings were published in Studies in Language Testing. The findings from the pilot projects then informed the manual revision project during 2008/09. Theoretical background. The CEFR adopts an action-oriented approach that, according to Carlos Carr, copyright Zajima, copyright Nezavuniversiteit Nacional Autocube Norma de Mar, copyright Zico, can be traced back to theoretical proposals made by philosophers of language such as Ludwig Wittgenstein in the 1950s and sociolinguists such as Delheims. The approach regards language users as social agents who develop general and particular communicative competencies while trying to achieve their everyday goals. The CEFR divides general competences in knowledge, skills, and existential competence, with particular communicative competences in linguistic competence, sociolinguistic competence, and pragmatic competence. This division does not exactly match previously well-known notions of communicative competence, but correspondences among them can be made. General and particular communicative competences are developed by producing or receiving texts in various contexts under various conditions and constraints. These contexts correspond to various sectors of social life that the CEFR calls domains. 4 broad domains are distinguished: educational, occupational, public, and personal. A language user can develop various degrees of competence in each of these domains, and to help describe them the CEFR has provided a set of common reference levels. Common reference levels. The Common European Framework divides learners into 3 broad divisions that can be divided into 6 levels. The CEFR describes what a learner is supposed to be able to do in reading, listening, speaking and writing at each level. These descriptors can apply to any of the languages spoken in Europe, and there are translations in many languages. Deutsche Welle suggests A1 is reached with about 75 hours of German tuition, A2.1 with about 150 hours, A2.2 with about 225 hours, B1.1 with about 300 hours, and B1.2 with about 400 hours. Cambridge ESOL said that each level is reached with the following guided learning hours: A2, €180 200. B1, €350 400. B2, €500 600. C1, €700 800, and C2, €1,000 1,200. Alliance for Intersection AS has stated students can expect to reach CEFR levels after the following cumulative hours of instruction: A160 €100, A2 160 euro 200, B1 360 euro 400, B2 560 euro 650, C1 810 euro 950, C2 1060 euro 1200. Equivalences of common tests to CEFR levels. Language schools and certificate bodies evaluate their own equivalences against the framework. Differences of estimation have been found to exist, for example, with the same level on the PTER, TOEFL, and IELTS, and is a cause of debate between test producers. Equivalence with common North American standards. Canada increasingly uses the CEFR. Exams such as the DELF, DALF, French, and the DELE, Spanish, are administered. The following table establishes approximate equivalences between the CEFR and some Canadian and U.S. standards. It is based on the tentative preliminary alignment tables of other language frameworks with the CEFR in the report Proposal for a Common Framework of Reference for Languages for Canada by Larry Vandergrift of the University of Ottawa, published by Heritage Canada. The standards compared are, the CEFR itself, Interagency Language Roundtable Scale, American Council for the Teaching of Foreign Languages Proficiency Guidelines, New Brunswick Oral Proficiency Scale, Canadian Language Benchmarks, Public Service Commission of Canada Second Official Language Proficiency Levels. The resulting correspondence between the ILR and ACTFL scales disagrees with the generally accepted one. The ACTFL standards were developed so that novice, intermediate, advanced and superior would correspond to 0/0 plus, 1/1 plus, 2/2 plus and 3/3 plus, respectively on the ILR scale. Also, the ILR and NBOPS scales do not correspond despite the fact that the latter was modeled on the former. A more recent document by MacDonald and Vandergrift estimates the following correspondences between the Public Service Commission levels and the CEFR levels. United States, other work has addressed correspondence with the ACTFL proficiency guidelines and the United States ILR scale specifically. For convenience, the following abbreviations will be used for the ACTFL levels: NLNH Euro Novice Low High, ILIH Euro Intermediate Low High, ALAH Euro Advanced Low High, SA Euro Superior, DA Euro Distinguished. A 2008 statistical study by Alfonso Martinez Basto en Universidad de Granada based on the performances of a group of subjects determines the following ordering of the ACTFL and CEFR levels, in which higher levels are placed further right. NLNMA1 NHA2/ILIMB1 IHB2 ALMC1 AHC2S. The following table summarizes the results of Martinez Basto en, the equivalences between CEFR and ACTFL standards proposed in a 2005 paper by Erwin Tscherner of Universität Leipzig, and the equivalences of Buitrago as quoted in Martinez Basto en 2008. In a panel discussion at the Osaka University of Foreign Studies, one of the co-authors of the CEFR, Brian North, stated that a sensible hypothesis would be for C2 to correspond to distinguished, C1 to superior, B2 to advanced mid, and B1 to intermediate high in the ACTFL system. This agrees with a table published by the American University Center of Provence giving the following correspondences. A study by Buck, Pafagayajai and Platzek addresses the correspondence between the difficulty of test items under the CEFR and ILR standards. The most common ILR levels for items of given CEFR difficulty were as follows: reading a Euro A1, 1, A2, 1, B1, 1 plus, B2, 2 plus, C1, 3, listening a Euro A1, 0 plus/1, A2, 1, B1, 1 plus, B2, 2, C1, 2 plus, see also, assessment of basic language and learning skills, Canadian language benchmarks, English as a foreign language, English profile, European Day of Languages, September 26, HSK test, ILR or Foreign Service Level Language Ability Measures, Language Education, List of language proficiency tests. Studies in language testing, task-based language learning, references. External links, Council of Europe, Common European Framework of Reference for Languages, EALTA European Association for Language Testing and Assessment, Association of Language Testers in Europe, Common European Framework of Reference in the US, Goethe-Institut, the Federal Republic of Germany Euro Unregistered Trademark S Cultural Institution Operational Worldwide, the European Language Certificates, CLES, Certificate de Camper Copyright Tenses en Langues de l'Enseignement Super Copyright Really Higher Education Language Certificate, based on the CEFR, the HCT Cambridge ESOL CEFR Conference, United Arab Emirates, equals Evaluation and Accreditation of Quality in Language Services, CEFR, Equivalency Table.